Welcome to Labor Vision, the at-home edition. I'm Autumn, your host, and with me today are Michael Sabitoni and Adam Lupino from LiUNA to talk about the new report on wage theft in Rhode Island. Hi guys, how are y'all doing?
Doing well, Autumn. Thanks for having us this afternoon.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
I was excited to talk about this with you. I know that there has been a bill introduced at the General Assembly addressing the issue of wage theft. And I kind of want to highlight this issue so that people at home know what wage theft is and how it affects Rhode Islanders. So that's, I guess, the first big question that I hope both of you can touch on. What is wage theft?
Well, Adam, I'll call seniority on you and start with the answer to the question, which is a pretty simple answer. Wage theft is when a worker is not paid his properly owed wages, sometimes and/or benefits for a service he provided via an employer, and the employer withholding those wages from him, which right now in Rhode Island is only a misdemeanor. Which the bill that we're pursuing with the Attorney General taking the lead on this and being supportive, as well as Governor McKee and Treasurer Magaziner, to make wage theft a felony, just like any other theft, if you perform that wage theft in excess of $1,500, which is normal state law for other theft. So that's pretty simple. That's what it is. Your employer doesn't pay you. We believe it's theft. We know it's theft. It's using a pen as opposed to other ways to conduct that theft, and feel very, very strongly that needs to be changed to become a felony.
And as Michael pointed out, the legislation is House Bill 7677. This was heard last week in the Judiciary Committee, and had a lot of support, obviously, from the Attorney General's office, Department of Labor, the AFL-CIO, and Michael representing the building trades and some of our contractor associations as well, and really trying to get the message out about what wage theft does, not only for the workers affected, who are getting their wages stolen, but also for the ripple effect through the rest of the economy, and how that's a bad thing, and it just exasperates the underground economy.
Yeah, so there was this report, which I will definitely link at the bottom of this show here, done with UMass Amherst and some others on the effects of wage theft in Rhode Island. And I believe I read that it cost taxpayers between $25.1 million and $54 million in 2019. So we're losing a lot of money as a state, let alone the wages that these workers are losing.
Right, and that is just some estimates looking at the data that we could compile through Department of Labor and Training, the Workers' Compensation Board, and we look at it. There is an additional amount that we believe that's out there. Even what we call, there's various ways to conduct wage theft. There's just you can actually even do it on the books or do it off the books, and then when you do it off the books or even on the books, when you misclassify workers and conduct wage theft, is when the taxpayers really lose in the long run as well. They lose with the taxes, income taxes that should be rightfully reported. Businesses lose by people not paying their adequate amounts for workers' comp insurance, and just the overall taxpayer loses just because there's a whole other economy out there that's tough to get a handle on the exact number. But one thing we know, it is it's a lot of money. It's pretty damn lucrative to misclassify and to steal using a pen as an employer, especially in the construction industry, to pay off the books and to exploit workers. So there are numerous agencies that are affected when this occurs to the tunes of millions of dollars.
Yeah, and you gave me a great segue here, because I also wanted to talk about this other part of wage theft, misclassification. And so I'm wondering if you could answer to me, Adam or Michael, what does it mean to misclassify a worker?
I'm gonna let Adam take that one.
Workers are misclassified as independent contractors. There's an independent contractor statute with the IRS that allows, the ability for someone to be a proper 1099 and all that. However, a lot of times we'll see in construction or the janitorial or cleaning industries where a worker is actually really should be an employee of that firm, but is identified as an independent contractor. So that employer can avoid paying, overtime or payroll taxes or workers' compensation, really just trying to lower the cost of that, of having that employee. And they're also off their books. So it's basically removing the liability of being an employer off your balance sheet, pouring all the risk onto the worker who's out there in many times a dangerous job with no protections. And then when something happens, they can go back and say, well, we weren't employing you. You're an independent contractor. So
and then in addition to that, what usually happens to that worker is they are unaware of their tax implications as being classified as an independent contractor. And then they start to rack up big tabs of taxes that they should owe, and then start to skirt the paying of those taxes. Just quite frankly, they don't have it. So when you start to look at these reports, you'll see even individuals, especially in construction, where I believe there is no place for independent contractors. You're either a contractor or you're not, independent or otherwise. So you should have all of the other proper documentation that goes along with being registered in the business as a contractor. What happens is that once that happens and you get behind in that, you get exploited as that independent, then it just snowballs, and it's so difficult to get out from under it because you've already been exploited, and then all the other things you could just never catch up. So that's one of the things as well that we believe is also that this bill will correct, is the exploitation when you misclassify workers as independent contractors, especially in the construction industry.
Yeah, I mean, I have to think about all the people who would be most vulnerable to this type of exploitation. I imagine that it disproportionately affects immigrants and undocumented workers. I believe I read that residential builders and others in the construction building trades, as well as janitorial firms, are really overrepresented in this crime.
Right. But there is a portion as well that are I will say want to be off the books and be paid in the underground in cash and otherwise, because quite frankly they're running away from something. They could be running away from some form of restitution via child support or alimony, and in some instances, and unfortunately it happens in our industry, people will try and exploit the systems, so collect, let's say, unemployment or some other form of workers' comp, you name it, and work at the same time so that they can double dip. So there is a big, huge group of exploitation of workers because of their status as maybe undocumented at the time. But there's also people that have some talent in our industry as well that are running or hiding from something that will work in that underground and get paid in cash as well. And you see that from time to time when they have the roundups. There's quite a few people that they catch usually when they do those roundups, especially I know on unemployment, we see those reports every so often when they publish those in the paper. So yeah, it's a problem. And we're hopeful that it takes an employer to create this problem. And it also takes two people. It has to be willing parties, at least with what I just mentioned on the when someone's hiding from something. The exploitation, it's only one person, and that's the employer, because he's actually performing the theft. So they're different but similar. But
Yeah.
Still, at the end of the day, the common denominator is always the employer, is where the restitution starts with that pen, and he is agreeable to either do theft or do some type of compensation off the books, and we believe that the correction of this law will create a deterrent for an employer to think twice if he's going to do any one of the things that I had mentioned for a way to skirt his obligations in the construction industry or other industries.
Absolutely. I think that George had testified in House Judiciary just the other week that if we manage to make wage theft a felony, we can help 3 types of people: workers, business owners, and taxpayers. That it's everyone that gets affected by this, and it's everyone that stands to benefit by shoring up our laws.
And that was a good point, Autumn, to mention about what George testified about, because as Michael was saying, look, there are good businesses, there are good employers out there. There are other employers that have basically made this their business model. And that's where you see in a lot of the residential construction or certain aspects of the industry, in cleaning, janitorial, where this is their model. We want to develop the lowest wage workforce possible with the least amount of strings attached, so that it removes all that liability from themselves. And then far too long, the Attorney General's office or the Department of Labor or Division of Taxation did not have the toolbox to go and really penalize this type of business behavior. Most of the companies, if they were fined or they were caught, they just wrote it off as a cost of doing business. Just we're going to build that cost in. We're going to pay the fine. It's almost like a traffic ticket and move on. Keep continually to do that. But with the $1,500 threshold, moving from a misdemeanor to a felony on wage theft and misclassification, that empowers this Attorney General, those other divisions, to really go after and dissuade. Maybe this will dissuade employers from going down this road. Never mind catch the bad actors, but maybe this starts to kind of put a dent in this being the cost of the business practice. This is how we do it.
Right. I remember, one of them was, again, the extradition capability as we changed this, where right now, if you come in and you conduct wage theft as an out-of-state company, come here and hire someone islanders, and then you leave, there's no recourse right now. There's only a misdemeanor, and there's no potential for an extradition. But we changed this, and obviously, if it's knowingly and willfully and egregious enough, if there's an employer that comes in here and does a real egregious theft of workers on a project, well, then that's there in place as a tool, as Adam had mentioned, for the Attorney General to use that power and use that as a deterrent for companies if they want to come in here and think, well, I'm only going to be here for X amount of time. Let me do what I got to do. And before it's time for me to settle up, I'll just get out of here. And there's no ramification for it. Well, now there is.
Yeah, and Rhode Island would certainly not be the first state to make wage theft a felony. I know that Minnesota, Colorado, California have laws like this. It's not unprecedented. And mainly, we want to make sure that bad actors can't be here, right?
And listen, we're pro-business, right? We're a pro-business organizations. All of the men and women I represent in the building trades work for private for-profit companies that I need to be successful, want to be successful and flourish and continue to, employ people and have a vibrant company. We're not anti-business, but unfortunately, we have unscrupulous employers that don't play by the rules. So that's what we mean when we say this is a good business bill. The law-abiding businesses that cross their T's and dot their I's and play by the rules and pay the proper wages and benefits should not be undercut and underbid by companies that do not, and with no deterrent. And it's just not fair. It's not a fair business practice. If everybody's playing by the rules, may the best man win. But when someone's got an edge because he's going to, I'll call it cheat, via the way that we've been explaining this the last few minutes, then that's where we have our issue. And I think, the general public would have an issue with it as well. Because at the end of the day, all of that theft is going in very few people's pockets. It's not being spread around. In some instances, this is taxpayers' money that should be being spent for the betterment, not only of the taxpayers, but the workers providing the service for the taxpayers. Not just one or two people or a few people at the top that might be developing a project or building a project. That's why we believe it's so egregious. And we know it is.
And going off that, the ripple effect, I mean, no one should labor and then have their wages stolen. I mean, it's disgusting. At the same time, that's those stolen wages. That's maybe a mortgage payment. Maybe that's a rent payment. Maybe that's a missed trip to the pharmacy, a missed trip to the grocery store. So those are all effects of it. Not only are the taxpayers losing out, stealing those taxpayer the dollars, you're stealing from that economy that relies on that. And then you're putting the worker who labored for those wages in an even more precarious situation. And how are we going to help them?
I was reading in this report, which is really fantastic, that payroll fraud like this has cost Rhode Island workers at least $5 million in 1 year, in 2019. And you have to think, like, if your boss is telling you, oh, I'll pay you in 1 week, I'll pay you in 2 weeks, I'll get you later, don't worry, you're more likely to stick around and work because you want to keep close to the boss that's withholding. You want to, you end up getting more of your labor stolen because you're hoping that if you hold out long enough, you'll get the money that you're already owed. So it becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy.
I didn't get paid yet, so I can't pay you. I didn't get paid by the owner. When I get it, you'll get it. Well, I'll make it up to you on the next job. This wasn't a good job. And then you, just like I was mentioning, even with wage theft, you get into a spiraling cycle. That's tough to break free because you're committed, you're vested because you're owed. And that's another reason why employers would do it. If I owe you, you're not going to run away from me because I owe you. So you're going to, continue to hope that at some point you're going to get even with me. But if I keep stringing you along, then exactly the scenario that you said, that's a way for them to, continue that cycle of theft and just give enough so that the employee does not go anywhere, but he's not getting his rightful restitution.
And it really does happen in all industries. I know that it's prevalent in the restaurant industry. I know that care workers, which are predominantly women and women of color, this happens a lot with under the table payments, with childcare and with elder care. So doing stuff like this, making it a felony, it's a really exciting opportunity for Rhode Island. And I'm wondering, what can we do? What can normal Rhode Islanders do to try and get this over the finish line?
I think just the awareness that we're going to be doing, the campaign, and we're going to talk about that at the closing of our segment today. If you are being affected by this, if you know a family member or a friend, or you believe that this is occurring, then we have a website that you can visit. It'll be at the end of the segment. Again, it's protectyourpay.ri.com or something like that. I know that it will be on.
I'll put the link in. Don't worry.
You'll put the link in, but to just bring awareness that this is happening. It happens more frequently than people think. And probably happening to someone very good chance that it is. So the more aware we can become and educate people that this occurs even in this day and age, and it occurs pretty frequently, I think is the best thing that people can do. The second thing that people, the Rhode Islanders can do is once you get, and I know you're going to put the report up there as well, senator and say, you know what, when someone comes and does a service, they deserve to get paid with their own, period. This is just a right thing to, this is not a complicated thing. If I'm owed X, you pay me X. That's it. That's the end of it. So, if you believe in it and, if you want to either send an email or make a phone call to your rep or senator and say, we support this, making wage theft a felony, then that's another, activism that they could do and help support getting this done.
And I'll provide a link with a way for you to find who your reps are and what their contact information is. It really is as simple as shooting off an email or sending a phone call. The lovely thing about Rhode Island is that our representatives tend to be pretty reachable.
Right.
All right. Well, is there anything else I missed? Anything you want to just underline or plug?
I'll give you the first shot at closing, Adam.
I'd just like to say, I mean, as we kind of discussed, maybe, the takeaway is, talk to your representatives, talk to your senators, but also maybe even having this discussion out in the open, having this kind of spotlight on it, maybe this empowers some workers to kind of look and figure out, well, am I being exploited? Am I a victim? And hopefully that they feel comfortable enough, given the attention this has, to come forward with their own story, and then through the website that we're engaging with, protectyourpayri.com, an avenue for them to get resources and help, but also to really drive home to our elected officials of how important of an issue this is, and that we have the opportunity to really, as Michael said, and this is earn to be able to earn what you what you're supposed to get paid for your work. It's an easy issue to resolve, but like I said, it's so critical to our economy, and the fraud has to stop.
Just to pick up from where Adam left off, we make a lot of investments, both public and private, in the state of Rhode Island, and a lot of those investments have to do with construction. So just be aware of what's happening in your surroundings, and if you believe that there's something that needs to be addressed, and you believe that wage theft is occurring, there's places such as the new website that we're putting up where people can actually get help. And getting help will also mean, once we change this law, so that at the end of the day, not only would it be a deterrent so it doesn't happen as frequently, but there'll be mechanisms in that toolbox, as we had mentioned, for now, for men and women who have been deprived their rightfully earned wages, recourse for restitution. And that's important as well. This is not a union, non-union issue. This is a worker issue. And as representatives of working men and women, that's us as trade unionists at our core, where regardless of your union status, if you work, you deserve your day's pay, period. That's the most simple thing, basic thing, I think, to mankind. If I provide you a service, then pay me what I'm owed. End of story. And hopefully this changing this law will allow that to happen, not only so that it occurs less frequently because of the deterrent, but also if it does happen, there will be reach and support for people for them to find their way towards restitution, as well as, if necessary, if it's knowingly and willfully, and the Attorney General finds out that is indeed an egregious theft of wages, that there'll be prosecution as well.
So we like to see a little bit of justice and getting people their money back. All right. Well, another thing that you can do is like and share this episode. You never have to miss a segment of Labor Vision. You can like us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is Labor Vision RI. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss important episodes like this. Our YouTube is Labor Vision TV 1, and you can always find us on our website. Thank you so much again, Michael and Adam, for coming on to Labor Vision. I really appreciate it, and it was a great time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.